People ask Reddit? OG Redditors, what are the darkest Reddit moments, threads that no longer exist or got lost over time? The time where Reddit went on a witch hunt for the Boston bombers, doxed some innocent kid who had gone missing, including posting harassing messages to his family on Facebook. Turns out the kid was not involved at all and disappeared at the same time because he committed suicide. We did it, Reddit. You left out the fact that the massive amount of harassment coming from Reddit led to the police releasing info about the actual Boston bomber early, which led to the Boston bomber fleeing early and killing a couple of police in the process, which likely could have been avoided otherwise. Harassed a grieving family and got a couple of cops killed while contributing nothing to the actual investigation. We did it, Reddit. There was a thread on, I think, r/legal advice a few years back asking how rape cases were investigated and prosecuted, and it was immediately apparent that it was posted by someone who was trying to figure out how to get away with rape. That didn't end well. Our Carl Programming was a really helpful guy who taught people programming and would helpfully answer questions. Stopped posting one day. Turns out the reason why he was arrested was for keeping his son locked in a room and making child porn of him for years. He was even Redditor of the day at a point. Apparently he committed suicide in November of 2014. He was hanging from his cell. Even weirder, there were message threads supposedly from him a number of years before his suicide where he discussed how he sympathized with the Westboro Baptist Church and believed in some of their ideology. There was definitely some screws loose in that guy's brain, just not the bits that can write code, I guess. For me, it's the pregnant lady who posted about a DPS worker claiming to have received an anonymous tip about drug use in the house, and how the newborn may need to be removed from the parent's custody after birth, and the lady was asking for advice as there was no drug use going on. The sub, can't remember which, called BS on the DPS worker, and the pregnant lady found out that the DPS worker was lying so they could supposedly kidnap the newborn. That story was messed up. It's beyond terrifying how vulnerable and targeted pregnant women are to psychos of both sexes. There are a lot of I survived stories from pregnant women, and way too many news reports of those who did not. The IMA from a guy who had just tried heroin for the first time. All the comments were people telling him that he had seriously fucked up and that he was going to end up a heroin addict. He was confident that he had enough self-control and that he would be fine. 2 weeks later he posted an update that he was deep in the throes of addiction and that his girlfriend was leaving him. A few more weeks later he posted more updates in which he revealed he had basically ruined his life due to addiction and was facing legal troubles and losing his job. I believe that his last update was several years later in which he said it took him several years to finally get clean. It was eerie reading people predict and foreshadow his downfall and how arrogant he was. It was a great lesson in how you can't fuck with heroin, not even once. I believe you can still find his account and post history. I've tried quite a few different drugs, some harder than others. But I can confidently say I would never try heroin. I'm sure it feels amazing, too amazing to want to try. It feels great. But once you develop a tolerance, it's just like any other opioid. You get used to it and start using it to feel normal rather than get high. I'm a year clean from heroin and have finally just now tapered off Suboxone. I agree it's not worth it. That time that guy discovered his wife cheated on him, Reddit advice was to file for a divorce immediately. His wife's response was to murder their children. The saddest thing is that this was really the best advice, since the woman was ruining the health of the guy and the family. Unfortunately, she was incredibly unbalanced and no one could have predicted that she would do something like that. Yeah, I feel like Reddit isn't exactly to blame there. I doubt even he thought she was capable of something that heinous. Definitely not to blame. You can't exactly predict that the woman would be completely unhinged and homicidal. It was still good advice. Very unfortunate. Grandma who killed her granddaughter because she didn't believe she was really allergic to coconut oil. Grandma has long insisted allergy isn't real, is generally awful. In rereading, her initial general behavior isn't as awful and I was mixing it up with a different terrible Reddit story. But I do think she used the coconut oil on purpose. Parents have warned her many times about allergy. Grandma is babysitting, puts coconut oil on the little girl's hair before putting her to bed. She died of an allergic reaction. This is one of the saddest stories I ever read on Reddit. And it drives me mad reading about anyone who doesn't believe in allergies. Bro, I can't help but imagine being those parents and coming to pick up your kid only to find them dead because of your stubborn-ass mother-in-law who had so little respect for you and your child they went against what probably dozens of people told her. Ducking crazy dude. The grandma deserved every bit of embarrassment and guilt for that. There was one thread about a dad who had the most terrible kid on earth. His wife ended up punching the shit out of the kid, and after they locked him away he escaped out of the window and never came back. Reply: oh, I remember that one. The father said he was scared the moment his wife became pregnant for the second time, thinking that the second child might turn out like him too. The Ask a Rapist thread is a pretty dark moment in Reddit history. It was nuked for obvious reasons. Reply: the most disgusting part about that thread was how supportive the commenters seemed to be. Reddit is a large site, so there is obviously going to be criminals of all types among the users. But the amount of upvotes they got, combined with the amount of excuses and justifications that came up, really showed what a staggering amount of truly horrible people are on this site. I don't recall the sub now, but there was a guy who was telling about the time he suffered a traumatic head injury. He was a pretty average Joe for Reddit, young, didn't really have a lot going on. While he was unconscious though, he saw himself graduate college, get a great job, meet the woman of his dreams and start a family, traveled, etc. He basically lived his entire dream life and grew old with her all in the few minutes he was knocked out. When he came to, it was gone, and he fell into depression and despair because he wanted it back so badly. That one always sticks with me for some reason. I remember one about a guy being the only architect in Britain, I think, who could work on a certain project. His boss, unaware of this fact, ended up being a complete jerk to him. So the guy decides to walk off. Long story short, the boss completely fucked himself over, and it was such a hilarious story, it was being updated as time went on, up until his wife logs onto his Reddit account one day to inform us all he had passed away from a car accident. Reply: he was one of the few that was certified to work on restoring historical buildings. Basically that boss couldn't get the project approved without this guy's signature. Noisy gobshite. I'll never forget that one. Pedophiles on Reddit. At one point half of new users were attracted via pedo subreddit. Oh, and let's not forget the recent shit show about new Reddit admin who did not notice that her father had abducted and kept a 10-year-old girl as a sex slave in a house she, admin, lived. Reply: oh, you mean Amy Challoner Knight, that admin? You're referring to the admin named Amy Challoner Knight? Yes, that one, Amy Challoner. The pedo admin. What makes me most suspicious about Amy Knight is that her admin account was never taken down. Thank you for listening to another B-Town Reddit Stories episode. Hit the subscribe button and check out our channel for more stories. Let us know your opinion about this topic in the comments.